We have a special honoree this week, this celebration, our Grand Marshal, and we would like to introduce a little bit about the Grand Marshal so that when he arrives, you can show your appreciation for his participation in the war events. So our Grand Marshal this year is a Granville resident, Gene Simmers, and he's a Silver Star recipient from the Vietnam War, the Southeast Asia conflict. The first thing Eugene Simmers of Granville wants anyone to know is that he is not the only veteran from Granville, Ohio, and he is thankful for every veteran who has ever served this country. He considers himself to be one of the band of brothers who served because they were asked. Despite his reticence, Granville and Licking County residents should know that he is one of a handful of people from the area who have received the Silver Star. It is the third highest citation anyone in the military can earn, and it represents heroism and valor. A 1966 graduate of Granville High School, Gene left the village of Granville in 1968 with a group of 10 to 15 young area men. They were draftees entering into the battle in Vietnam. They did not all make it back, and some were gravely wounded. On February 9, 1969, at the age of 21, Gene would meet and overcome one of the biggest challenges he would ever face.
Gene served in the Army as a medical specialist. One sweltering day, he was on a routine patrol with his unit. As they approached a bridge over a rice paddy, the soldiers at the front of the line encountered a command-detonated booby trap. Gene heard the explosion and rushed to the site. The citation tells the rest of the story. April 20, 1969, award of the Silver Star Simmers, Eugene M. U.S. Special 4, Headquarters and Headquarters Company, 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry, 11th Infantry Brigade, APO 96217 on 9. February 9th, 1969, Theater Republic of Vietnam.
For gallantry in action against an armed hostile force in the Republic of Vietnam, Specialist 4 Simmers distinguished himself by intrepid actions on February 9, 1969, while serving as a medic with Company A, 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry. On that date, the company was conducting a combat patrol near Mu Doc when it came under enemy ambush initiated by a command-detonated booby trap. Upon hearing the explosion, Specialist Simmers rushed to the front of the company and came under intense sniper fire from scattered positions in the area. After taking momentary cover, he maneuvered through the hostile fire and administered first aid to those wounded in the explosion. Despite enemy fire impacting all around him, he moved throughout the area to aid his fellow soldiers. His courageous actions were directly responsible for saving the lives of his comrades. Specialist 4 Simmers' personal heroism, professional competence, and devotion to duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the American Division, the United States Army. By direction of the President on the provisions of the Act of Congress, approved 9 July 1918. When asked for personal memory of the incident, Gene said, "I just knew I had 7 guys hit, and I had to do whatever I could to keep them alive." Thanks to Gene's actions, all but one survived. Gene got each man on medical evacuation helicopters and states, "I was just doing my job, and they gave me a medal for it." His eyes are serious, a little sad, not boastful.
Gene returned home 5 months later and declined to go to an Army base to receive his commendation. As so many Vietnam veterans experienced, his homecoming was marred by cruel, misguided beliefs about an unpopular war. The Vietnam conflict was not the making of soldiers fighting it, but of course was due to the decisions made by the leaders whose perspectives were unfathomable to some Americans. Warriors returning home were derided, spat upon, and worse from the very people they were sworn to protect. The peace movement, when it was underway in the 60s, blurring the line between what was just and what was unjust. "We thought we were there to stop communist aggression," Jean said, and they fought, as all soldiers do, to protect the loved ones and a way of life. It was 33 years before Army paperwork would resurface and present the Silver Star to the specialist Simmers. Today we speak of PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder easily. PTSD was not recognized by the VA until the 1980s, so Vietnam vets were untreated for decades. All combat or injury produces PTSD to some degree in soldiers. And when these veterans came home to unspeakable disdain from their friends and other citizens, the stress and depression set in. The soldiers in Vietnam faced unknown enemies during the war in those jungles and towns. A child or an old woman were as capable of lobbing a hand grenade as was a uniformed Vietnamese soldier. People serving in the Middle Eastern conflicts have similar enemies today. It takes strength and help from others to cope with the demons of PTSD. It also takes a country willing to embrace those who have served.
Ask what might have been the most helpful things that allowed him to deal with PTSD. Jean gives credit to people who take an interest in the history of the soldiers and who are willing to learn about the experiences these people have had. Counseling and fellow soldiers' friendship and stories have also been helpful. Appreciation for Jean's acts of valor has been a long time coming and is richly deserved. To quote General Norman Schwarzkopf, "It doesn't take a hero to order men into battle. It takes a hero to be one of those men who goes into battle."
Jean still resides with his wife in the Granville home where he was raised by his grandparents. Jean has 3 daughters and 6 grandchildren. Please thank Gene Simmers personally the next time you see him, and please thank every veteran you meet for placing themselves between you and harm from the enemy, both foreign and domestic.
As a person who served in that same period of time in the military, I urge you to stand and give Gene a real welcome home to Granville and a real thanks for what he has done and what he has been through. We know that there's a lot of demons that come out of the closets after conflicts like that, and we're here to show our appreciation for those who have worked for us.
All right, we're getting away.